Welcome back, everyone. We're taking a little side trip to do some touring today. We're heading through Mt Mortar, grabbing some items and going after a rare Pokemon. Let's head on in, and we can get started by using Flash. As you can see, I've changed my team around a little bit because I need an empty slot. You'll also see I have Goldeen because I will need Waterfall, Mersey can't learn it, and I will need Strength and Surf. Gibson is there because he hasn't had much time in the limelight. If we head through here, we should be able to search for some items. I think we went down here. Yes, we did. And I forgot to put repels on, that's a great start. So nothing special there, we'll put them on now. Forgive me if my voice is a little bit scratchy, I think I'm coming down with a cold. Could be worse. So we have plenty of repels. We're good to go, we can travel uninterrupted now. So if we head through here, we should find that boulder we pushed earlier. We'll have a quick look through this area and see what we can find. Now be warned, I am going to be spending a lot of time stumbling around because I don't really know what I'm doing in here. I very rarely go into Mt Mortar if I'm going to be honest. There's not really much purpose and I don't use fighting types that much. So as it happens, I don't really have any need to go and grab Tyrogue. Just checking in case there are hidden items around the place. There don't seem to be. There is an item up here though. And we can slowly work our way through. What's over this way? That's just a path back down. So to be honest, I'm touring just as much as you are. I'm a bit lost sometimes. So we had an item over this way. If we drop down here, we can grab whatever this is. Hyper Potion, not too bad. You will find the Dragon Scale in here as well, though I believe you will need Waterfall for it. Alright, one repel down. Should have plenty to keep us covered. I don't have any escape ropes, so I can't quickly get back to the start, and that's kind of annoying. So let's see, was it down here we had this? Yes. Speaking of speak of the devil. That's going to come in handy. What's up this way? Okay, it doesn't look like we can progress much further in this part of Mt Mortar. You'll be able to find those items, you can explore it fully once you have strength, but you will need to go through the central path in order to get everything. So yeah, as you can see, it's going to be a bit difficult trying to proceed, unless we go up those stairs there. So up here there is absolutely nothing unless there's a hidden item of some kind. Doesn't seem to be. No, that's obviously just a bit of a distraction. So we can head back down from here. And there we are. So up here I believe is the path to another item we found earlier. Another repel down. And I'm definitely putting one on because I know if I say, I don't need a repel, I'll be fine, I'll run into a freaking Zubat. So we head out close to Mahogany Town, but we can surf to the middle area now. This is where all the treasure lies. So we'll quickly have Bellsprout use Flash. And you'll find there should be a bit to explore. Let's head off to the left first. What do we have around here? Well, it all loops around anyway. So there's the waterfall. That's going to be our focal area. This is the center. Let's pop into the ladder before us and see what we can find. Again, a lot of exploring to do. So we'll just jump over here, and presumably there's an item with the item finder, except... Actually, you know what? Let's use it. Let's try using the item finder for once. Register it to the select button. So that was absolutely pointless. Peculiar little dead ends, to be honest. Kind of wonder why. There's quite an intricate network of paths along here. Presumably to help you see the area. Wild Pokemon aren't too different as far as I know. So, anything up here? No. I'm surprised there aren't hidden items around here. You're generally not going to work out that much about Mt Mortar because it's not really essential to the story. It's just sort of there. It's nice to explore it, you can sort of consider it a bonus dungeon, as it were, but there's really no purpose to it. And this will link back to a later area. We can't get through there. But if we keep going down and around, we should be able to find an item we saw earlier. Or not. That's a little confusing. Have I missed something? Probably have missed something because, as I said, I am incredibly rusty. Okay, anything? No. Still no. Tell you what, I'll try and find that item I saw earlier, and then we can proceed. Rightio. So... yeah, so I see that one. How do I get there? Do I have to come up a ladder somewhere else or something? Or I just go up here. Jeez Louise, I'm stupid. And another hyper potion, always handy. Like I said, this is pretty much a trip for discovery. For me, just as much as it is for you. Of course, it probably doesn't put you in good faith to see that your tour guide is aimlessly stumbling around, does it? So another repel's worn off and we'll go and explore the left-hand side of the room. Since we're just sort of stumbling around, suppose I probably should pose a few questions. Suppose I've asked people things like... usually ask people things like what their favourite Pokemon games are, what their favourite Pokemon is, who their favourite human character in the series is might be an interesting consideration. I mean, hands down, my favourite is Sabrina. Flannery comes close, but you'll find out later exactly why Sabrina means so much to me. I'll just leave it at that. And this area is just for items, it seems. Yeah, other favourite human characters include Steven, who is also my favourite champion. He's the reason I use steel types, because of the steel psychic Metagross. Pretty cool Pokemon, and I am kind of disappointed that it got indirectly nerfed by Game Freak nerfing steel types arguably too much in exchange for their advantage against fairy types. I wouldn't have minded just Ghost, but Ghost and Dark was too much of a trade-off. So there's Steven. I also like Byron and Lucian because I can relate to him. I've got glasses as well. I like getting lost in a good book. Fond of psychic types. You can probably tell I'm a bit dry on ideas because I'm just sort of stumbling through seeing where everything goes. But I suppose that's half the fun of it. It's a bit of a journey. I probably will be crucified for saying this, but I'm not as big a fan of Cynthia as everyone else. She's nice, but I think her team was sort of a case of anyone could have used it. She's certainly developed as a character as time has gone on, but the problem was that her team just seemed like they threw together a whole lot of really, really strong Pokemon just for the sake of giving you a challenge, and it didn't help that she basically wound up making the end of Diamond and Pearl a level cliff. Can't really blame her for that. That was the developers, though. As you've seen in the last episode, I'm not particularly fond of Claire. I do like Jasmine a lot, however. So, back on track with our tour guiding, we've gone into the depths of Mt Mortar. We have plenty of exploration to do and quite a few items to find. And I'm pretty much stumbling. So, what do we have here? Max Potion. Very useful for high HP Pokemon, but you're going to get much more mileage out of Hyper Potions in a regular playthrough. So I've sort of discussed this and some of my favourite... Rightio. Now this is back where we were. Just want to double check and make absolutely sure. So yeah, with that done, yep, this is back where we were. I've talked about some of my favourite trainers in the series. You know my favourite type, it's the Psychic type with Steel and Ghost following close behind. The ones I tend not to like that much would be Dragon, Dark, and Fighting for some reason. Fighting is kind of odd because it's not like I hate it. I just don't seem to take it into consideration when I'm building teams, as I mentioned in Poliwrath's Spotlight. It's just sort of there for me. Oh, rare candy, that's useful. It's particularly odd. I mean, there are some very good fighting type Pokemon, but the only one I seem to go out of my way to use on a regular basis is Machamp. Otherwise, they're just sort of there, and it's really odd. Dark types, I admit I had a grudge against because I like Psychic types, and I didn't understand exactly why Psychic types in Generation 1 were so dangerous because I actually played this first. Then I understood that they did have to be balanced. And Dragon types just kind of got ridiculously overpowered, and to a degree they still are, even with the advent of Fairy types. Anything that can boast the pointlessly overpowered Ultra Necrozma and Mega Rayquaza, you know is just overdoing it. I'm not very fond of them. I admit I wasn't fond of the Delta episode in general, in fairness, if we're talking about things that we really don't like. It was alright, but Zinnia came off as very unlikable, and the whole plot almost seemed like, okay, so what would happen if Michael Bay directed a Pokemon game? I mean, the plot is basically Armageddon. You can't really deny that. So yeah, I felt that sort of came across as fairly clunky, a bit awkward. I think I was supposed to surf up there. And the whole thing just really felt annoying. In fact, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire in general probably were kind of letdowns in my eyes. They didn't take enough cues from Emerald version, which I thought was really disappointing. Emerald is an incredibly good game. It has so many great things going about it. The lack of the Battlefront here was a serious kick in the nuts for most people. And the fact you couldn't rematch the gym leaders I found rather annoying as well, because I enjoyed doing that. I suppose I've been spoiled a little bit by Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but I did appreciate the feature in Emerald and Platinum. But yeah, it just feels like not enough was done to make them different. There are still issues with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and I will admit that, I will be honest. But I feel that they did enough to make themselves really stand out at the same time. You do get the feeling they put a lot of effort into this. And while they did improve the villain teams a fair bit, they became they had much better characterization, they were much more interesting, and their plans actually kind of made sense. There still wasn't quite enough. The level curve wasn't fixed, which I still find a bit annoying. And let's see, what's TM40 again? It's been a long time. Defense Curl. Why Defense Curl? Okay, so yeah, I do love the original games because I think they just sort of had that special something, and I'm not as fond of the remakes. I do like the Dex Nav though. Probably on the last, I'm going to be grumpy about this element. I have to say I didn't like the pointlessly dark backstory they just sort of threw in for the sake of it, sort of connected to Seymourville and all that. I don't think it really added anything in the long run. And it just sort of seemed like something out of an Orwellian dystopia, which was completely out of place in my eyes. It's like all of a sudden you've just got this utterly psychopathic company and it's just like, why are they doing this? I think that's the dragon scale up there, by the way. It just felt unnecessary to me. And this is sort of what I worry about, that if they're going to do a Sinnoh remake, so we have the dragon scale, that will let us evolve Seadra into Kingdra when we trade it. But if they do a remake of the Sinnoh games, what are they going to do? They risk screwing it up by adding too much of Diamond and Pearl, which weren't great. They were very good technically, but they weren't really great in terms of pacing and things like that, and the story is kind of ridiculous. You really have to draw a lot from Platinum. You're effectively remaking Platinum, and Diamond and Pearl are kind of left out of the loop, and Platinum is a really solid game as is. But yeah, the fact that they're probably going to stuff things up and focus on Diamond and Pearl rather than Platinum, if the other remakes are anything to go by, does kind of make me worried for everyone who likes the Sinnoh games. Because, I mean, I've warmed to the Sinnoh games, if I'm going to be honest. Still not necessarily my favourites, but I do hold them in a much higher light than I used to. If there's one that I'm really not a fan of, it's the Kalos games. I think they traded way too much on the Generation 1 nostalgia. The plot was really, really clunky. It was sort of unnecessarily drawn out, and it sort of accelerated right towards the end when they actually remembered that Team Flare was supposed to do something. Character development wasn't very strong, even though we know Pokemon games aren't big on character development for the most part. I do feel there were many more interesting characters in previous games, and they did do some good character development in like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black and White, and I suppose to a degree Platinum when you get to talk to the gym leaders. But a lot of that stuff sort of went out the window with X and Y. It also didn't help that a lot of people tended to praise Lysander for being some sort of visionary when he was very obviously evil. And he kind of cribbed his plan from Hugo Drax in Moonraker, which I suppose you can't hold against him too much, but really it just didn't seem that well executed to me. And if you like the Kalos games, then you can feel free to disregard what I'm saying and keep on liking them. I've been panning a hell of a lot of things, but you know what? If you like them, I have absolutely no problem with that. You might hate Heart Gold and Soul Silver. That's fair. So yeah, I do generally believe in a live and let live philosophy. I will express the reasons why I dislike things, but I will try to do so diplomatically and politely, with room for people to give polite rebuttals and enjoy things. And next episode, I'll probably start talking about the things I like, because really, I've just been rambling about these things to fill space until we got to this guy. I think I'm going to lead out with Gibson because he's actually not weak to fighting moves. So, here we are. This is the Karate King. And we will battle him to earn a Pokemon. It is implied this is the same guy you beat in the fighting dojo in Saffron City, in Red and Blue. He uses the same Pokemon as well. Alright, I wouldn't mind having an Earthquake, but let's see, after I've... Alright, I probably could have gone with Defense Curl. High Jump Kick can be risky. It got a lot more risky in later games. In these games, you'll do damage equal to, I think, half the damage you would have done to the opponent. But later on, I think it was half your maximum HP, which is really, really bad. So, we have Hitmonchan next. Worth noting, Hitmonlee does not have very good defenses. At least not physical defense. All the Hitmons have 110 base special defense. Hitmonlee is a little bit faster than the Hitmonchan. Hitmontop is slightly slower. Hitmontop has the best physical defense of the lot. Its attack and defense are balanced at base 95. You'll find out all about that once we've done the spotlight, which is coming up right after this battle. And he probably should have used Ice Punch earlier, but I think that wraps it up for us. Gibson takes the win. Nicely done. And there we go. We have defeated him. And there we are. It is pretty tough sometimes to know that your best isn't good enough. You put in a hell of an effort, and it hurts just to know that your best isn't good enough. You've done everything you can, and it's still not enough. You can always improve, but it is kind of crushing. I feel for you, man. So, we've got Tyrogue, and let's cut to the spotlight. A lot of people might wind up skipping over Tyrogue because they don't know about the caves in Mt Mortar. However, if you do go looking for it, it can give you some decent fighting type Pokemon. Tyrogue's base stats are all the same as you can see on the screen, and they're not very good. It is, however, actually designed to resemble a beginning fighter. It will evolve depending on its stats. If its attack is higher than its defense, it will become Hitmonlee. If defense is higher than attack, Hitmonchan. If they're even, it will become Hitmontop. Hitmonlee sports some very powerful kicking moves. Hitmonchan is all about punching, and Hitmontop also uses kicks, because it's actually based on a capoeira fighter. In this generation, Hitmonlee is probably the best choice, with its high power and great attacks. It does have a bit of a risk to it, but it is fairly strong. Hitmonchan can't use its power well, at least until Generation 4, and while Hitmontop is bulky, its poor HP lets it down, and Triple Kick isn't quite as good as you'd think. It's only really about as strong as Double Kick at its absolute best. As the generations go on, they will be a bit more useful, however, and the Hitmon line is still pretty handy if you want a good fighting type along the way, even if there are probably better ones. So, I'm not going to give Tyrogue a nickname. And we can head out now. Let's use those escape ropes. And away we go! And here we are, back on Route 42, and let's take a quick look at our Tyrogue. As you can see, it comes at level 10, only knows Tackle. Its stats are very similar because, well, you will have seen why. So we can evolve that at a later point. However, we're going to wrap things up there. I'm not going up the Tin Tower or into the Whirl Islands just yet. We'll save that for a bit later on. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next installment of our scenic tour through the Johto region.